In the before time, in the long ago, when I first started painting, I went into a Benjamin Moore store and was slightly overwhelmed with the amount of products on offer. Since then, my brother and I have tried, I would say, most of the products that are currently in their rotation, and so much so that now we can provide you with this concise overview of the typical product lines that you're going to find in most of the Benjamin Moore stores you go into. All right, first up on the bottom tier is Ultraspec. It used to be called Super Spec, and now it is Ultra, because I guess that's better. The paint from this tier that I'm actually most interested in is their flat Ultraspec. I did a review of the Super Spec flat, and it's pretty solid. It's actually my go-to ceiling paint from Benjamin Moore, and I've heard that the flat Ultra is actually now a dead flat, and a lot of guys really like that for a ceiling paint as well. So that's something to keep an eye out for, and generally you can get it for a pretty solid price. Above that is Ben, and I've had mixed feelings about Ben. We don't typically use it unless the client has already purchased it or requested it specifically, or trying to match something and they used it before. Next up is my favorite line of paint from Benjamin Moore, which is their Regal Select line. It is muy bueno. In fact, the eggshell from Regal Select is the best eggshell paint I've ever used. Wait a minute. Hey, it's me from the future. You can tell because I'm wearing a different hat. Okay, so that last part where I said Regal Select eggshell is our favorite eggshell has changed somewhat in the last week. So since the filming of this initial video, we used the new formulation of Regal Select eggshell. The issue we ran into is that when, generally if you're painting a room, you cut in all your cut lines and then you roll the paint into those wet cut lines. When we did that, where the roller met the wet cut lines, it sagged. And it looked like melted candle wax on a lot of parts of the wall. So that was unfortunate. It didn't happen on every wall. Where there was like new construction and new drywall, it seemed to not be affected, but we had it happen in multiple areas, and another crew that I talked to ran into a similar issue, and what they said to do was actually wait for your cut-ins to dry and then roll the walls. So we did that, and that worked out really well. Any of the spots that had sagged, we just sanded that out with a fez tool, and then we cut everything in. We let the cut-ins dry and then rolled it, and then it dried. It looked fine. As you can tell in this picture, the finish looks really nice. I would say that is a little bit shinier and smoother than Regal eggshell from before. I have only used the eggshell sheen in the new Regal line, so I can't speak to the other sheen levels just yet. I will probably do a video on that in the future, but until then, back to the past. Now, something that's less than excellent currently is the Regal Select SemiGloss. In most stores, that is the top-selling paint that is used on trim and doors. The Regal Classic, which was the old version, was actually really nice to work with. Now, when they reformulated it to Regal Select, it became very difficult to work with, and then what happened is, if we have to use that paint, you end up having to mix in a lot of extender, which extends the open time of that product. But now, the word on the street is they are actually reformulating Regal Select SemiGloss to be more like the old Regal Select, or the old Regal Classic SemiGloss, which is excellent. I'm very much looking forward to trying that out in the near future. So that's something to be aware of. And next up, this product line is technically above Regal Select, and that is their Aura line of paint. And I politely disagree, because I think Aura is overpriced and hot garbage. In fact, the last time we used Aura eggshell, we had a terrible experience. The client requested it, and she also picked a color that was only available in Aura, and the paint went on terribly. It was super slow to cut in, and then when we rolled it, it actually sagged off the wall, and it looked like the walls were weeping. It was awful. So we ended up having to sand off a bunch of that, like the sag lines, and then switch to a much tighter nap roller, and then, recoat it and do all that. It was a big pain in the butt, and for as expensive that product is, it just is unacceptable that that can happen. On that note, there is Aura Bath and Spa, which is not technically in that regular Aura paint. The Aura Bath and Spa is specially formulated for high moisture bathrooms or a spa type scenario. So it's got the moisture and mold blocking agents built into it. It does hold up really well, and it is very like wipeable, and it cleans up pretty well. However, I did a review of this product a little while ago, which I still stand by everything I said in that video. And that's just, it is somewhat difficult to work with. You end up having some picture framing issues and some lap mark issues, which I don't think you should have in a product that costs $80+ a gallon. Next up is Advance, which is a hybrid trim paint from Benjamin Moore. It replaced all of their old oil-based trim paints, and it does really well. I actually think it performs quite nicely. I've done a couple videos on Advance, which I will link to up here. The open time is quite aggressive, meaning that it stays wet a long time. It takes quite a while for it to cure, but the finish quality is exceptional, particularly in the satin and the semi-gloss. I would highly recommend giving that a go, and a lot of guys really like using that on kitchen cabinets and things like that. Next up is their Waterborne ceiling paint. That's kind of their premium ceiling paint. I did a review of this one as well. It is really slow to apply because it's very thick, and it does splatter quite a bit. The finish quality is decent. Again, for a product of that price point, I would like it to be a little bit easier to work with, but that's just me. And lastly, a specialty product line from Benjamin Moore is their Scuff X line. Originally, it was formulated for industrial applications like hospitals, doctors' offices, gymnasiums, things that get a lot of wear and tear. But folks also like using this product for high-use areas in their homes, particularly if they have children's.
Hello there, children.
I do want to actually test this product a little bit more. I've used it a couple times, and it does seem to hold up well and can take a pretty decent beating, particularly if you let it cure before you really start banging it up. So that is my overview of Benjamin Moore's typical interior products. If you found this useful, you might also like my explanation of Sherwin-Williams product line, which I will link to at the end of this video. And until next time, y'all take it easy, work smart, and have a go. Peace. So we've got some kind of party lights going because I'm from the future.
Amazing.